So if you are looking for that shoe that has a lot of breakage, that gives you a ton of flex, this can be a great bet. You also have some lateral and medial sidewalls here around the boot and the midfoot to help give you additional support. So it does kind of feed better into forms of cross training where you do want a lot of flexibility, but a little bit of lockdown as well. The second context and second thing to like with the shoe is if you're somebody that likes a knit shoe with a booty style construction and you're really prioritizing comfort with your barefoot shoe, this can be a good option to look into. The reason why I like this option over the Primus Lite Knit actually is because we don't have such an aggressive toe break. This model has been exceptionally comfortable, it fits really well, and the knit isn't super aggressive when it comes to digging in the top of the foot and pressing in the top of the foot like some of the other Vivobarefoot models can when they're made of the knit. So I do like the knit of this shoe in the context of general comfort, and if you like booty style shoes, this model will slap for your needs. The third thing to like with the shoe is if you are somebody like myself who doesn't necessarily always love messing with laces, this can be an awesome option with this bungee lacing system. You also have a toggle here so you can hook it around the laces, and it makes it really easy just to set and forget the shoe. It's easy to pop on and off, and honestly, I will just set it at a setting that I like regarding security, but just general comfort, and then not even have to adjust it for my workouts or daily wear, and it stays secure enough. So I really like that about this shoe. And if you're lazy like me, I think you will enjoy this feature as well, and I really enjoy that Vivobarefoot put a toggle on this lacing system compared to other models where you kind of have to like awkwardly tuck it. So it's a good thing for this shoe overall. But now let's talk about a couple of cons that I have with the Motus Flex. So 3 cons that I have with the Motus Flex is number 1, if you want a barefoot shoe for all season wear and to wear throughout rain and whatnot in wet climates, this is probably not going to be your best bet. With the knit upper, it's not going to give you the most warmth, and with the breaks of the sole, while I love them for training and giving you flexibility and also for dry climate daily wear, I worry that if you're getting this excessively wet and whatnot, how that's going to fare long term with these materials, the glues and adhesives here. So all that said, if you are in damp climates often and whatnot, you might want to consider opting for a different shoe to wear out and about just to prolong this model's overall durability. The second con that I have with this shoe is if you want a barefoot shoe for any form of really aggressive cross training where you're really going to be needing sidewall support or additional toe box support from sliding forward, this is likely not going to be your best shoe. Because we have this stretchy knit and we have this bungee and toggle system here, you're not going to have as much security as a traditional lace shoe with thicker, more aggressive overlays or upper materials at that. So all that said, you can definitely cross train in this shoe and it works fine, but as you get more specific and as you're doing like broad jumps, aggressive skater strides, aggressive lateral work when it comes to cutting and whatnot, you might find that you have a little bit of spillover in the shoe or it's not giving you the lockdown that you want. So keep that in mind for my folks who are very niche with their power focused training. This is also not going to be your best model for CrossFit too. Go with the Motus Strength if that is something you're after. That more aggressive and rigid upper of that model will be a lot better regarding long-term durability. My third con with this shoe is the price point. This model costs around $190. I find that to be pretty high. Now I do have a code for Vivobarefoot. It is going to be linked down there below. If you decide to go with the Motus Flex and my review helped you out, it does help out the channel and the business if you use it. But all that said, you can definitely find models that will perform really well that cost less. The Innovate Bear XF, the Tolos Archetype 2.0, Zero Shoes Prio, Neo, Zelen, etc. All of those models can perform exceptionally well for lifting, cross training and whatnot, and they're going to cost you significantly less. So if you're not necessarily resonating with the booty style construction or the overall flexibility of the sole, you can definitely find shoes that are not going to break the bank if you are a little bit more frugal or on a budget with your barefoot shoe options. But now let's talk about the performance of the Motus Flex. To discuss the performance of the Motus Flex, I'll discuss how the shoe does for lifting, cross training, and daily wear. I did not run in this shoe because this model runs a little bit long on me and the upper is a little bit looser regarding security. It just didn't feel very comfortable when I started running in them, so I just kind of axed that performance testing in this shoe. If you want this model for running, I would say look into other reviews of the shoe because I just didn't push them in that vertical. I didn't find them that comfortable for that ask. I'd rather wear a different barefoot shoe in that context. Now, when it comes to lifting, the shoe does a good job for general strength and hypertrophy workouts. So if you're somebody that wants that barefoot shoe that's very comfortable for things like walking lunges, squats, deadlifts, RDLs, machine work and whatnot, this shoe will do a good job. The outsole gives you enough grip, and with the brakes up here, I don't think that's going to take away from stability whatsoever. If anything, you'll just get more flexibility when you're doing single leg work or any form of dynamic lifting like power cleans and whatnot. Now, I will say, if you are somebody who wants that barefoot shoe for weightlifting, so doing clean and jerks and snatches, this would be something I would say be very cautious of with this shoe, just because with this upper security, I don't want you getting heavy and then splaying out the feet or splitting in your jerk and then actually running out of security to actually lock that foot down, spilling over, hitting your toe box, etc. So this model will work for most lifting contexts, and if you're very focused on just mobility focused workouts when it comes to your lifting needs, that will be a context that I think the shoe will excel in, but it will have some limitations overall. And that's also why I'd say probably pass on the shoe for CrossFit as well. Outside of the power focus stuff, I just don't think the upper is going to protect the foot enough for CrossFit WODs where you're going to have more abrasion on the top of the foot. When it comes to cross training, I like this shoe for the most part. And honestly, if you're somebody that wants that shoe for some just general sled work, some box jumps, jump rope, etc., this shoe can work really well. I like the flex of the forefoot. I think you're gonna like the grip, and you do have enough structure through the midfoot and heel to give you a good amount of support when you're doing more general plyos versus doing like more advanced plyos. So if you're somebody that wants that barefoot shoe for doing a little bit of everything, and you're not necessarily so specific with your athletic endeavors and whatnot, this shoe will work well for your cross training needs. And then when it comes to daily wear, I really like this shoe. Now, the things to like with the shoe include the lacing system and how you can just kind of set and forget it. Big fan of that because I can be a lazy mofo with my lacing. And then also I like the breathability of the upper and the comfort, and the outsole has a lot of flexibility to it. My only gripes with this shoe for daily wear is number one, it's not gonna be your best winter friendly shoe. And two, if you're in inclement weather and rain and whatnot, be cautious of that material down here because you do have a pretty thin material here separating the knit from the floor, and that can have breakdown if you're getting it wet and having that water sit in them all day. So when it comes to the price of the Vivobarefoot Motus Flex, you can expect to pay around $190. Now, that is pretty high for this shoe. However, you can typically find coupons for this model. I actually have one for the channel. Again, that's gonna be linked down below. It helps out the biz. Use it if you want, but do not feel like I'm trying to sell you this shoe or usher you into this model, because there are models that cost less that perform just as well as the shoe. But all that said, I think this model does have a very specific niche context where I think it makes a lot of sense. But again, $190 is pretty expensive for what this shoe is. All right, so now let's answer the question, who should buy the Motus Flex? So if you are a lifter and athlete that is very mobility focused, or somebody who wants a barefoot shoe that moves really well with the foot, this can be an awesome option to go with. The second context is if you're somebody that wants that knit barefoot shoe that's very comfortable and has a easygoing lacing system, this model will also work for your needs. And I know you know who you are when it comes to being lazy with your laces, because I am the same exact way. The third context is if you're somebody who wants as much flexibility as possible with your barefoot shoe, and you have other Vivobarefoot models, but you do want a model that is a little bit more flexy, this can be a great option to go with. You also have this removable insole, so you can get super close to the ground and have a ton of ground feel and flexibility with this model. Now, who shouldn't buy this shoe? Number one, if you're an athlete who needs a lot of upper security, whether that's for athletic focused workouts or for CrossFit workouts, pass on this shoe. I don't think you're gonna get it with this upper. Number two, if you're on a budget, just pass on this model. You can find models, even knit models, that are costing less that are gonna perform very similar to this in the gym. And honestly, the flexibility, I don't think is gonna make that big of a difference for most folks who are just getting into barefoot shoes or who are more intermediate with their barefoot shoe selection. The third context is if you are somebody who lives in a damp, wet climate, or if you need a shoe for winter wear as well, and you want a singular shoe and you don't wanna drop money on multiple shoes to rotate in and out, that would definitely be something to consider with this model. And you might wanna pass on this shoe too if that sounds like you. So when it comes to the sizing of the Motus Flex, I find the shoe to run long. So I went actually to Vivobarefoot store in London and got my foot sized with their scanner. And I was talking to the guy and he was like, okay, it's tough because every model runs a little bit different regarding length. And the Motus Flex is one of those models that does run a little bit long, similar to other Primus models. I find this shoe to feel longer compared to the Motus Strength. So all that said, what size should you go with? So if you have a wider foot width, true to size will be a good call. Now, if you are somebody who typically has about a thumb's length of width at the end of your toe box, I would say size down. Now, if you're in between sizes, and you typically have a bunch of room at the end of your toe box, size down. If you have an exceptionally wide foot and you're in between sizes, you might be safe going up. And then as an additional note, if you have a 4E plus foot width, you might want to consider the upper in this model and how it may lack security. Some folks have reported this model to feel a little bit snug regarding its width. So while I don't have an issue with it at a 2E width foot, it's definitely going to be a little bit snug, I think, for certain foot anatomies, because Vivobarefoot models do not have the most width compared to other barefoot shoes on the market. All right, so in discussing the weight, heel toe drop, and insole in the Motus Flex, for my size 10 model here, we have a weight of 9.75 ounces. The rubber of this model's sole is what gives it its weight and density. This model obviously has a 0mm heel toe drop, so it's a zero drop shoe, and you also have a removable insole. So you have this foam removable insole, and you could take that out and you have a finished internal construction if you want a little bit more ground feel with this shoe. It also gives this model a much more flexible and lightweight feel. It drops that weight down to 8.30 ounces. All right, so now let's cover the construction of the Motus Flex. So on the upper of the shoe, you have this stretchy knit upper. As you can see, you have a little bit more breathability at the base of the forefoot here, and then you have a bit more stretch to it. It gives this model a lot more comfort, and there's not an aggressive toe break in the shoe, which I personally love. You also have 5 core eyelets that go up with this bungee lacing system, and you have this like quick draw string with a toggle at the end, so you can hook this at the bottom, and it helps give you additional security. You have some Vivobarefoot branding here on the lateral side and up here on the tongue, and then you also have a booty style construction with an external heel tab here to help pull this shoe on. You have a rubber and TPU overlay around the boot as well to give you additional ankle support. Looking at the sole of this shoe, you have the Motus Flex outsole. So this is a pretty aggressive and thick rubber construction. It's very grippy, and it has brakes here at the forefoot and the midfoot. As you can see, it helps add to that model's overall flexibility, and this wraps up on the lateral and medial side, giving you additional support when doing lateral movements and cross training. So I do like that about this shoe. However, the upper, again, you can have a little bit of spill over in the shoe despite having a slightly higher rubber sole. And then looking at the insole, once again, you have this thin foam removable insole. It is built with more recycled materials, which is great, and a finished internal construction, but that pretty much makes up the nuts and bolts of this shoe's construction. If you have additional questions though, drop a comment down below. All right, y'all, there's my review of the Vivobarefoot Motus Flex. Now, would I get this shoe again? I probably would. And you know what's funny is I was actually very hit or miss on this model. I didn't necessarily love it out of the box, but it has since grown on me because when I asked myself, okay, would I get the shoe again realistically? I think where I started to say yes was when I started thinking about the Primus Trail Knit FG and the Primus Lite Knit. I really love knit uppers in my barefoot shoes, but those models definitely have some comfort discrepancies. I never had that issue with this model, so if I was going to get a knit barefoot shoe from Vivobarefoot again for training and just daily wear, the Motus Flex would be my first pick, and that's why I would get the shoe again. If you have additional questions on this model, drop a comment down below or reach out to me personally, whichever you prefer. And as always, y'all, drop a like on the video, drop a subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.